Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something absolutely fascinating, how identity shifts actually create success. We're going to unpack a full 180-day blueprint. Because here's the thing, becoming truly unrecognizable in just 6 months, it literally requires a complete architectural teardown of who you are right now.
So let's just address the elephant in the room right off the bat. Why do most transformations fail? Well, it's actually not a lack of effort. And it's definitely not a lack of willpower. It's really because people try to staple these brand new, highly ambitious habits onto a completely outdated self-image.
Think about it like this. Trying to change your life without shifting your underlying identity is like trying to build a massive skyscraper on swampland. I mean, you can lay the bricks perfectly, right? But you're still going to watch the whole thing slowly sink. You simply cannot build lasting success on the swampland of your old identity. Real change only starts when you're willing to literally burn the old blueprint and draw it up completely from scratch. And to do that, we've got a 6-pillar agenda today. We're going to cover redrawing your identity blueprint, forging the physical proof, accelerating your skill stack, re-engineering your environment, upgrading your social ecosystem, and finally, fortifying your mind. Let's get right into it. Pillar number 1 is the foundation, redrawing your identity blueprint. Because if you don't change that baseline identity, your old habits are basically just rotting luggage that you're dragging into your brand new life. And this brings us to a massive roadblock, cognitive dissonance. This is that horrible internal tension you feel when your actions don't match the outdated story you still believe about yourself. Look, if you still see yourself as someone who is just trying to get in shape, rather than someone who inherently is in shape, your brain is going to sabotage you every single time. When there's a mismatch between who you say you are and how you act, it just festers until you either align the two or you collapse.
So how do we actually fix that? Well, the secret is that every single choice is a vote. You've got to stop thinking of yourself as this rigid, finished product of your past and realize you're a fluid product of your daily decisions. You really don't need some dramatic movie-style montage to change your life. You just need to continuously cast votes for the new you through those small daily decisions. Once you start stacking those votes without breaking your streak, that identity shift becomes absolutely irreversible.
But to rebuild, you do have to rip out the moldy floorboards first. Honestly, maybe it's fine is the most dangerous phrase in your vocabulary right now. If it's not a hell yes, it has to be a surgical no. You've got to strip away those old habits without any gentleness whatsoever. Treat this new identity almost like a religion, with unwavering belief, daily rituals, and super strict boundaries, even before the external results have caught up with you. Moving on to Pillar 2, the framework, which is all about forging the physical proof. Your body is the undeniable receipt for your discipline. It literally announces your transformation to a room before you even open your mouth. Now, see this number? 100? This is exactly where most people trip up. You shouldn't be aiming for just one perfect day of fitness or diet. You need to aim for 100 average, repetitive, boring days. Showing up for 100 average days is what actually breaks your old body and shatters those old habits. It creates this unstoppable momentum that just bleeds into everything else you do in life. So the framework here has to be rigid. We're talking 4 heavy lifts a week, eating intentionally, like sticking to mostly the same unprocessed meals every day, getting a minimum of 10,000 steps, aiming for 7.5 hours of sleep, and tracking absolutely everything. And look, these rules, they aren't about vanity, not at all. They are physical proof of your new identity. They prove to you that you can execute long-term change. Because sloppy posture leads to sloppy thinking, right? When you master your physical body, you're going to quickly realize you can master your mind too.
All right, Pillar 3, the utilities, or accelerating your skill stack. This is all about acquiring rare, highly monetizable skills that give you real, tangible power out there in the marketplace.
If you want to compress time, try this 90-day mastery cycle. First, pick just one high-income skill and ruthlessly eliminate all the others. Second, do a massive deep dive for 7 days. We're talking saturating your brain for 8 or more hours a day. Third, launch one actual real-world project. And fourth, get fast feedback from reality. You have got to stop dabbling. Obsess over a skill, whether that's copywriting, sales, or coding, until you are literally impossible to replace. Remember, real urgency is what creates output. Next up is Pillar 4, the surroundings, which means re-engineering your environment. You could have the most perfect plan in the world, but if you wake up in the same messy room, stuck in the exact same dopamine-drenched digital bubble, you are eventually going to fold and snap right back to baseline. The absolute game changer here is subtraction. Personal growth isn't always about adding another 10 fancy productivity apps to your phone. Mostly, it's the ruthless subtraction of dead weight. We all know how tough it is to actually put the phone down, but you gotta unfollow those accounts that just normalize mediocrity, delete the distracting apps, and toss out any physical clutter that's anchoring you to your past self. You have to make bad habits incredibly hard to do, and good habits totally unavoidable.
Which leads perfectly into Pillar 5, the location, or upgrading your social ecosystem. The hard truth is, you don't rise to your goals, you sink to the level of your surroundings. The people around you really do dictate your ceiling. Think of it like this. You have +1 connections. These are the people who normalize winning and actively push you forward. Then you have -1 connections, people who tolerate mediocrity and basically act like a brick tied to your ankle. You've got to ruthlessly audit your circle right now. Cut the -1s, and honestly, if you have to, pay to get into rooms with +1s, like masterminds or private networks. Just being in their presence will force you to level up. And finally, Pillar 6, the defense system, which is fortifying your mind. Because without deep psychological armor, all the inevitable stress and criticism of life is going to dismantle everything you just built with a single punch. Real resilience is the flat-out refusal to let outside circumstances dictate your fate or your pace. Mental strength isn't about forced positivity or living in denial. Not at all. It's about strict obedience to your own standards. It's keeping those promises you made yourself, especially when it sucks, and especially when absolutely nobody else is watching you do it. And mastering what's called the gap of maturity is where this identity shift actually locks in. Here's how it works. First, a stressful impulse or trigger hits you. Second, instead of reacting, you pause in silence. Just let it breathe for a second. Third, you take action based on your new identity, not your temporary mood. We've got to stop playing life on defense. When a trigger hits, live in that gap between the impulse and the action. Strong minds take stress and turn it into output, rather than just blindly reacting. Okay, moving to the final stage, the 180-day execution. We've got the blueprint, now it's time to actually pour the concrete and build the skyscraper. Here is your literal action plan. First, pick a hard start date within the next 72 hours. Second, you have to run all 6 pillars simultaneously. No skipping allowed. Third, measure your progress every single day. And fourth, audit your whole system every 2 weeks. Listen, this is not a buffet where you just casually pick what's comfortable. You must execute all 6 at once. The goal isn't necessarily perfection, it's visibility. Because you can't deny the truth when it's staring right back at you in black and white. So here is the big question. Are you ready to burn your old blueprint and become completely unrecognizable? The choice is entirely up to you. You can absolutely stay in the slow sinking comfort of the swamp. Or you can take full responsibility, lean into the friction, and fundamentally rewrite your destiny by shifting your identity today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Now go start casting those daily votes for the new you.